Hello, everybody, and welcome to part one of the Dynamics 365 TechTalk Commerce Extension Series. Today's topic is Overview of the CRT and POS extension with the new Sealed SDK. My name is Jocelyn, and I'll be your moderator today. We are broadcasting this session through Teams live events, and the audio can be heard through your device speakers. This session is being recorded on behalf of the Microsoft Corporation. When you join this event, your name, email address, and/or phone number may be viewable by other session participants in the attendee list. By joining, you are agreeing to this experience. The recording will be available on the Tech Talks Community Dynamics page within 5 business days. If you have questions for the presenters or need support, please use the Q&A panel located on the right side of your screen. Our presenters will be responding to your questions during today's presentation, and there will be time for further questions at the end. Thank you for your patience during these announcements. Presenting for us today from Microsoft, we have Mugunthan Manny, Senior Program Manager, and Luke Graham, Senior Software Engineer. Mugunthan, over to you. And we'll have you take yourself off mute.
Yeah, thanks, Jocelyn. Hey, hi everyone. So today we're gonna talk about the overview of the new CRT and POS extension SDK. So previously we had like a retail SDK. Now we are coming up with a new SDK called the Commerce SDK, just like much more greater benefits when compared to the legacy SDK. So in this session, me and Luke will go over the benefits of the new SDK and how you can use the new SDK to do your commerce customization. Okay. So with that introduction, we'll get started. Yeah. So I'll quickly go over the agenda for today's session. So first I will give a quick overview of the commerce extension, talk about like what is extensible in commerce and what are the components you will customize for different scenario. Okay. And then next we'll go over the new SDK. So we'll quickly show like what is the new SDK all about and what is the difference when compared with the previous retail SDK. So we'll walk through that. And then I will cover the how you can set up a local development environment using the new Commerce SDK. Okay. Previously, you would have used like the LCS, the lifecycle servers development VM. This will go to LCS and deploy VM. Right now, I'll walk through like how you can set up the local development environment. Okay, and then I will talk about like how you can do a commerce extension, basically the commerce runtime business logic extension using the new SDK. And then we'll talk about like how you can generate extension packages and installer for the commerce runtime extension. And after that, Luke will cover like how will you do the point of sale extension. And then we'll end with the key takeaways and then Q&A. Okay. So the last 5 minutes, we'll try to do the Q&A. So if you have any questions, please like type it in the chat window. Okay. First, I will give a brief overview of the commerce extension architecture. Yeah. So before going to the architecture, I just want to set the context. Okay. So we are going to do like a series of sessions for the new Commerce SDK. So this one will be like a high-level overview of the new SDK and how you can get started with your development. Okay. The follow-up sessions will do like more deep dive on how will you do CRT and POS extension with the new SDK. So if you're already using the new Commerce SDK, it will be a little repetitive for you, but we just want to set the context like the base ready for the upcoming series of session where we're going to do the deep dive. Yeah. Okay. So this is the high level commerce architecture. Okay. In this one, the middle box, if you see, called the commerce runtime, which is our core business logic engine. So this commerce runtime contains all the required business logic for the commerce. For example, your in-store components like the modern point of sale or the cloud point of sale or even the upcoming new store commerce, all going to call this commerce runtime for the core business logic. Okay, so this commerce runtime, the business logic is exposed through the headless commerce OData web API. Okay, so all this business logic, it's wrapped by that OData Web API, and any different client, either the point of sale or like the call center for pricing scenario or for the e-commerce. So it's all gonna consume this commerce runtime for the core business logic through the web data API. Okay, suppose if you have like any scenario where you want to customize the business logic, then you will customize the commerce runtime. Okay, suppose if you want to add and expose a new API, say for example, you added a new business logic API and you want to expose it through your client, then you will create a business logic called the commerce runtime. In many places you will see we are calling it a CRT. It's for like stands for the commerce runtime. Okay. You will first create your business logic. Then on top of that business logic, you're going to create your OData web endpoint, which is called as headless commerce API. Okay. Then any different client, either it can be our out of the box modern point of sale or the e-commerce or call center, can consume this operation. Or if you are like doing an integration with a third-party system, and also from those system also you can consume the headless commerce. Or even if recently we are even working on like the Power Platform connector, so you are creating a Power App or something, then you can also consume this headless commerce APIs using the Power Platform connector. Yeah. Okay. So with that, we'll not go deep into the architecture because we have covered this in a different slide session. So we'll quickly jump to the next section. Yeah. Okay. So after, say, for example, we talked about the business logic, commerce runtime customization. Maybe later during the session, Luke will talk about like how will you do the client side of customization for the point of sale. Okay, but at a high level architecture, so when you do a headless commerce extension and POS extension, this slide shows you like how the deployment and flow works. So you do the customization, either you can do the runtime or the business logic customization or the database customization, okay, and then POS UI client side of customization. You can package all those and then deploy to on-prem, okay, where you can have your own local scale unit. So we call it as a scale unit self-hosted, or if it's hosted by the Microsoft, then we call it as the cloud scale unit. The Microsoft hosted. So in case of the self-hosted, where you will package everything with your extension and deploy it. Similarly, you will, for the modern point of sale, basically the UWP version of the POS, you will package all your extension together and then install it on-prem. Or you can also do the cloud hosted. So where you package and deploy all your different extension. Okay. I'm not going to talk about the e-commerce on the FinOps, okay, but these are the three components we're going to cover in our today's session. The headless commerce extension and the client side of it. And then once you package and have your packages ready for all these different components, it gets deployed either based on your deployment topology. It will get deployed in the self-hosted or like the cloud hosted or the Microsoft hosted or in the point of sale, depends on what type of application you're using. Okay. So with that, we'll go to the new SDK overview. Okay. So the first thing I want to talk about, the SDK the new SDK mainly contains two components. One is the samples, okay, and the other one is the packages. Okay. So the samples, previously it all was published in the retail SDK LCS dev VM. Now all the samples we are migrating or like creating new sample and then publishing it to the GitHub. Okay, so going forward, any new sample, you will find it in the GitHub. Maybe later when I show the demo of the GitHub, I will show like what are the different repos we have. Okay, and now that folder structure is created for the new SDK, I will walk through that. Okay, then the second part of the SDK is like the reference library or the packages. Okay, to do any commerce development, you may need to consume our contracts, or you need to consume our messages or entities, or even to create extension packages or installer, you need to consume the packages. Okay, so all those packages are now available in the public feed. So if you want to develop a commerce runtime extension, even you don't need these samples, you can just create like a C# project, and then you can consume these packages, okay, for any of the reference messages and entities or interface, and then you can do your development and then publish the extension. Okay, so it's kind of like much more simplified, similar to like a .NET development experience. Say, for example, if you want to do any .NET development, what you do, like you just open Visual Studio, you create a project, you select the project type is Net Standard 2.0 or whatever the version. And then you're going to add all the dependency libraries, and then you do development and deploy it, right? So now the commerce development is exactly kind of like following the same pattern. Okay, so you do your extension project, either it doesn't matter for point of sale or commerce runtime or headless commerce API. So all will follow the same pattern. So you create the extension project, you consume the packages from the public feed, and then you can do the development. Okay, the samples report just for like giving you some samples on like how to do this development, but it's not like mandatory or like necessary to clone this repo or follow our repo structure. How it's more like open standard like .NET, where you can follow your best practice and pattern to do the development. Okay. The next part I will quickly cover like a quick do a comparison between the old SDK and the old retail SDK and the new commerce SDK. Okay, and then show like what are the key differences between those two. Okay, so the first thing, as I said, like the required for development is your reference library. Okay, so now the reference library is like available in the public feed. Okay, you can get the location for this public feed. Okay, so then to consume this library, now you can use NuGet Manager, right? And then you can put the public feed URL, and then you can start consuming all different versions of the DLL. But previously in the older SDK, everything was like published in the retail SDK packages folder. Okay. Then the second big difference is the samples. So for the new SDK, all the samples are published in GitHub. In the older version, the samples are available in the retail SDK folder. The third main difference is the packaging tools. The other reason why you would need our SDK is to generate the extension packages or installers, right? So previously in the old SDK, when you do MS build, it's going to generate all those packages. Now we kind of like much more simplified the package generation or the installer generation process. Okay, what you can do is like you can consume the packages from the public feed. Say for example, I want to generate my extension package for the Commerce Cloud Scale unit. Okay. So what I can do is like I can consume that particular package, and then when I build my project, it's going to generate me the output. So there is now like no separate tools or anything, just you have to consume the right packages for either to generate the installer or for the cloud scale unit package. Okay, so that's one other big change here. Okay. And then the next one, the difference is the dev environment. Okay. So there are currently some scripts available in the GitHub sample repo to automate your dev environment setup process. Okay, basically like we kind of did like a FI experience. So when you press FI, it will deploy the environment for you. So for example, you wanna, hey, I don't want the LCS VM because of costs, or it's like too much time for me to set it up and update. I want to do everything on my local VM. Can I do that with new Commerce SDK? Yes. So what you can do is like you can download the scripts or just clone the sample repo. Okay, and then when you press F5, it will check if the its local environment setup is already done or not. If not, it will automatically do all those. So we added like the VS task in the Visual Studio Code. And maybe during the demo, I will show you like how you can quickly set up those tasks, the pre-run those tasks, and then it will automatically set up all the environment for you. Okay. For the old SDK, it's all like LCS dev VM base. Everything is pre-configured and installed for you, but it has like both pros and cons. Like everything pre-configured for you, but the drawback is like every time you have to do an update and maintain it, right? But in this case, just like the simple FI experience, gonna take care of setting up the environment for you. The next is the POS template. Previously, to develop POS extension, you need to have the POS.app project and POS.the extension project, and different packages need to consume from this extension project. But now it's more again became like, as I said earlier, it's like a .NET development. You create a POS project types like the JS project type and the different projects. Maybe later Luke will walk through those. Okay, so we'll create those project types, and then you will start consuming the POS package and do development. It's more like pure add-in development. There is no more like dependency with our core component. So say for example, if you want to develop an add-in for Microsoft Edge, right? You consume the package and you create the add-in. Something very similar you will do here. So you will consume the POS package and then you will create the extension here. And then the next important one is the installers. Again, previously it was tightly coupled with MS build register build process, where that kind of there is a DRS project file, and internally it calls the packaging project to generate the packages. Now it's kind of all separated out, so you can create your own project and then reference what for which POS project or the scale unit project you want to create the installer. By consuming the right installer package, it will generate the installer for you. Okay. Same thing with the last thing is the build pipeline. So now the build pipeline is like much more simplified. Okay, there is no need to use our DRS project file to set up your build pipeline. Now it's like, since it's think like more like a .NET project, right? So you can set up your own build pipeline, something very similar now you can do. You don't need to have like any of our scripts or anything to set up your pipeline. You can do all those on a, like your own, something similar like how you set up for your .NET project. But still we provided some sample script like how to set up the build pipeline, but it is much more streamlined now, like similar to the .NET developer experience. Yeah, those are like some of the key difference between the old SDK, the retail SDK, and the new Commerce SDK. Yeah. Okay. Then the one next important questions will come to you like, hey, why we even did this change, right? What is the reason I should migrate, or what is the reason I should use this new SDK? Okay, there are some major pain points we hear from many of our customers and partners. Okay, then so we thought like we should definitely take measures and solve those pain points, and then make the developer life much simpler or easier. So any commerce development should be like as easy as possible. Right? You should not be worried about setting up the environment, how to get the packages, or updating the SDK. You should only focus more on your development or like your business logic, right? That's exactly the goal we took. We want our partners and customer focus only on the customization, not worry about this infrastructure or how to get the SDK. So we want to streamline all those processes as much as possible. That's the main reason why we took those steps and make sure we are trying to achieve that goal. Okay. So for example, right, one of the pain points we added in the older SDK was the update. Okay. Say for example, you are in version 10.20. Now you want to update to 10.21. So you have to go through the LCS process where you need to select the application package and then apply updates. That's going to take like another 3-4 hours to get the new retail SDK. And if you have like 10 different deviants, you have to do the same process. And it's also not one time. So every monthly update, you have to do repeat the same process, right? Now with this new model, getting a update is just like a few clicks. So you go to the NuGet package manager, and then in the drop down, you want to select which version I need. Okay. Or you can even like create a NuGet config, which can automatically pull the latest version. But I think that may not work very well because you may go live with a particular version, right? So you can just like put which versions you want to pick it in the NuGet config. But in case if you want to like, hey, I always want to be on the latest, I want to do every monthly update, then you can like always create a config in such a way it always takes the latest packages. Okay, and then you can do like monthly update here. And other one good thing is like whenever you update the, say for example, if your core application like the cloud scale unit is 1020 and then you update it 1021, and it's not necessary you need to update your extension. You can update the extension whenever you want. Same thing with the modern point of sale. Previously what happened was like, say there's again like if you want to change from 1020 to 1021, you have to repackage. If you have extension, you have to repackage it and bundle it and create a new installer. So now what happened was like with the new model, the extension installers are separated. So you can independently update the out-of-the-box MPOS installer and your extension. So you already deployed like 1020 out-of-the-box MPOS, modern point of sale, and then you have an extension also deployed. Okay. Now what you can do is to update, you can just like, yeah, I don't want to touch my extension. I didn't change anything. And now we just want to update out-of-the-box MPOS, right? Now you can just take the out-of-the-box installer and run it with a new model. You don't have to like do a repackaging, merge, or create it. That's one like big change we did. So the one big main advantage is like the seamless update experience. Okay, and then independently updating the out of the box product and your extension. Now you don't have, with every upgrade, you don't have to like upgrade your extension. You can upgrade it like whenever you feel like, hey, now I want to make some enhancement to my extension. That's where I want to update. So you can independently now update your extension. Same goes for either cloud scale unit the self-hosted or like the cloud-hosted or for the modern point of sale. So it's kind of the same pattern, similar to the same with the cloud point of sale also. Yeah. And other thing is like, so if you update it to this new model, our CSU, we are internally migrating to the ASP.NET Core 3.1, so which has like better performance for all the APIs on the framework level. It's got much more improvement, stability. So if you this will not work with the older version of the SDK, which is based on the Net 4.6.1. But if you upgrade to the new model, the Net Standard 2.0 or later, then we can also upgrade your CSU to the latest version. Yeah. So this is more kind of an internal one, but the advantage is once you move to this new SDK, it will give you a lot of this benefits. Yeah. And other next important thing is the samples and packages are published to GitHub. So you don't have to wait like hours to get the new SDK and then compare what has been changed. Now we can just do a git pull and then see like what has been changed in the SDK. But again, like this, the repo only going to contain samples, so you don't have to get the latest version from the repo. But just for example, if you want to be waiting for a new sample, you want to do like, hey, how to do some scenarios by checking the sample. Now all those can be like done in like few minutes. I talked about the installers, and then other one big change we did was like the automated packaging and configuration. Previously used to update like, hey, which DLL I should include. There are like 3 or 4 config files you have to update it, and then for packaging you have to go to the customization.setting files and update it. There are like a lot of few things you have to do to generate the packages. Now all those things are kind of automated, so you don't have to do like any other additional work. Just consume the packaging project, the packaging library, and then tell which projects to package. We will automatically do the packaging for you. Okay. And also like the build time. That's the other one new thing we introduced was like using Visual Studio Code for the cloud scale unit development. So now you can use the lightweight Visual Studio if you're only doing like the cloud scale unit extension, like the Commerce runtime and API. Now you can easily do that using the Visual Studio Code. I will later show that during the demo. Yeah. So the next thing I will show you like how to set up the local development environment. Okay. So to set up the local development, you can currently also we have the LCS dev VM where you can go to LCS and provision at that dev VM. But soon we will kind of remove some of the components from the LCS. The LCS dev VM will be there, but there will not be any retail components. Either you have to like set it up using the local development process, or you can manually install those components. Again, why we did this changes? One, then your update experience for the LCM is the developer VM is tightly coupled with the LCS. So every time you have to go through the LCS and do the upgrade process, right? So we want to reduce it, and also like hosting a dedicated VM for all development incurs a lot of costs. So that's like the other feedback we got. So we kind of introduced this local development. Okay. And then also we want to make the VM much more powerful. Suppose if you're a developer only doing CSU, I'm not worried about, hey, I don't need AOS or I don't need the async line. Then with the local development, even you can do a lightweight version of it. So you don't have to do the full end-to-end setup. So during the demo, I will show how to do the lightweight versus the full one. Yeah. Okay, those are some of the key reasons why we did the local development environment. Again, the benefit, as I talked about, reduced costs. There is update is much more simplified, and you can do it in like few minutes. And then like we also want to bring that FI developers environment setup. I don't have to like the complex do multiple installations and then set up this, configure that. So all those, we don't want you to spend time. Just press FI, it should automatically deploy it for you. Yeah. Okay, those are the other key changes we did. Okay, before going to the demo of the local commerce development environment, I will quickly talk about the headless commerce extension also, and then I will combine the demo of both local development environment setup as well as the commerce runtime extension. Okay, so I know like many of you already know about the commerce runtime extension. Okay, there is nothing majorly changed when compared to the older version and the old retail SDK and the new commerce SDK. It's kind of exactly the same. So whatever the logic you wrote, you can easily be able to migrate it. You don't have to rewrite any of the business logic as long as if you followed the best practice. The only two main changes you need to do. Suppose if your CRT runtime project is based on Net 4.6.1 or 4.6.2, you need to like migrate it to the Net Standard 2.0 minimum. So you'll just go to the project type on the project properties, and then you will change the project type from the net 461 to net standard. Then the second main thing you're going to change from the old project is like, say, for example, you would have consumed all the reference library required for development from the retail SDK packages folder, right? Instead, you're going to update the project reference to point to the new get feed. So those will be the two main changes you do. So it should be something fast, and you should be able to easily migrate to the new SDK. Okay. So this Commerce runtime will quickly spend like 1 minute on the high level architecture. Yeah. So the Commerce runtime contains our, as I said earlier, contains all of our core business logic. Say, for example, the pricing logic or the search logic, all different logic will be available in the Commerce runtime, and you can customize any of this business logic. Okay. Similarly, all this business logic sits on top of the OData, like exposed through this OData endpoint. That's we call it as the API. Okay. Just to expose any of this business logic, you need to create API. So all our existing business logic is exposed through this API. Suppose if you create your own business logic and you want to expose it, then you need to create this OData endpoint also. It's very simple how to create a expose and the OData endpoint for your new business logic. I'll quickly show that in the demo. Yeah. Okay. So in the next slide, I will talk about like what are similarly the last point here before going to the next slide is also if you want to create new channel database, when I mean like the new tables, procs, or view related for your extension, you can also customize the channel database. So nothing changed in the new Commerce SDK. The only two changes, as I said, is like you're going to refer from the public feed and then change the project type. Yeah? Rest all should work as is. Okay. In the high level patterns, as I said, like you can create new endpoint, and also for every business logic, you can do a pre or post trigger. Say for everything we do from the client, it's going to make a HTTP request call, and then you're going to get a response. So the request will make an API call. Internally within that API, we're going to call the Commerce runtime business logic, which will again follow kind of similar pattern like a request response. So you will call like, say, for example, the API is get prices. Okay. Internally, it will call the Commerce runtime business logic, hey, get product price or get active price request. It will call, and then it will return the get active product response, which will then return to the API. Okay. So now for each of those requests, say for the get product request, you can do a pre-trigger or you can do a post-trigger. When I mean pre-trigger, before executing, you can do some logic. After executing, you can do some logic, or you can completely override that business logic. Or also you can do chain of commands like override it, but first call out of the box, then modify the response, return your customer response. So you can also do like a chain of handler, or in some cases, you can say like, hey, I will override it, but only based on condition I want to execute it. Then you can just throw like not implementer, it will call the next in the sequence. So there are like few different patterns here. So we'll cover all those how will you do all these different patterns in the upcoming deep dive sessions. So this one, we just want to give a quick overview of like how the business logic extension works. Yeah. Okay. So now we'll do a quick demo of the local development environment, Commerce runtime. Also, I will cover the demo for the extension installers also. Okay. Just again, the new extension installer framework is like, this is like a new framework we added for the extensions. Okay. So in a headless way, you should be able to create the extension installer. Basically, like, sorry, what I meant is like the extension installers are headless. Okay. So you don't have to need the new installers will not have any UI. So you should be able to run it through the command prompt. Okay. So it works great for mass deployment and other like deployment scenarios. Okay. You can pass everything as like the parameters. Okay. And also the other new thing is this extension installer separates the core and extension. Say, for example, the out-of-the-box modern point of sale or the cloud scale unit self-hosted installer will be separate, and any extension create, it will be like a separate installer, so that you can independently install your extension and independently install and update your code. So whenever there's a change in extension, you will generate a new installer. And also other thing is like it's going to support like multiple installers. So you are like ISV, you created your installer, and then the customer has some in-house customization. Now all those can be independently done. Okay, so previously all has been combined as one installer. Now everything is separated, so you can independently install your extension and deploy it. Okay? And again, as I said, like you can start to support mass deployment and other scenarios. You can now pass all those required things as like parameter, so that you can do like a remote installation or do other setups here. Okay. And again, the extension installer, you don't need to have like any dependencies with the GitHub repo or anything. To generate the installer, you can create your own project and just consume the extension packages from the NuGet feed. So you'll be able to generate the installer. It's like much more simplified. Then I will cover all this 3 demo in the interest of time. Yeah, I thought of individually doing the demo, but maybe in the interest of time, we'll cover all these demos together. So first, I will quickly show you how to set up the local development environment. Next, how to create like a simple retail server and CRT extension, and then how to generate the installer. Yeah. With that, I will navigate to my VM and show a quick demo. Yeah, give me a minute. I connected to my VM. Okay. So before going to that VM, so the first thing, so if you go to the GitHub project, you will see a repo called the scale unit. We have 2 other repos. So the one is the in-store and the other one is the solutions. Okay. The in-store contains all the POS related and some of the channel components. So Luke will later cover this one. So I will talk about the scale unit repo. So this repo contains all the code samples related to Commerce runtime and the retail server extension. So if you go inside this Commerce runtime folder, you can see like how you can create new CR business logic extension and also how you can expose that using the API. So you can just like see the samples from this repo and then you can clone it or like just do something similar like this, but it's not like mandatory to clone this repo. Okay. And one other additional thing it contains is for the environment setup, you will see something related .vs code and some script folder here. Okay, this is mainly to set up your local development environment, but in the future, even we are planning to move this as like add-ins, or else you don't even the script folder I talked about to set up some environment. Right? So in the future, all this will be like kind of a Visual Studio add-in. So you will not see any of this script. Currently, you need this script to set up the development environment. Okay. So now what I did was, so I cloned that repo. So if I go to here, I cloned that repo here. Okay. And then I created like a API extension. So to create a new API, you need to extend from this iController. Okay, so that is detailed documentation. We'll do a deep dive on all of this one, but just to give a quick overview, you will create this extend from this particular class called iController by consuming the relevant packages from the public feed. Okay, so for example, if I go to this project, you can see like, hey, this is the package I'm consuming, and my version is coming from the repo props file. Okay, so I'm consuming this runtime packages, which has all my, it's kind of a bundle package. It contains all the required other DLLs. So you don't have to consume like 10 different DLL and like in the old retail SDK. You just consume this one project. Then I can create my API here. And then also I can create my some of the Commerce runtime extensions. Say, for example, I created some message sample messages here. Okay. Then to consume this one, you will go to your API extension and then just call this request response. Okay, that's it. It's like you create a controller class for your which API to expose. Okay, and then inside what business logic you will call, that's a CRT commerce runtime request and response. So you're just gonna call those. That's it. So you create like a simple extension API, and then you create like your business logic. Similarly to if you want to override, say for example, I talked about triggers, right? So you can also override our triggers by implementing this request handler. Say for example, I want to add a trigger for this particular CRT request response, then you can add that. Okay, you may have like a lot of questions here. How will I know which request and which response to call for which scenario? We'll cover all those in our deep dive sessions here. Now I will. Okay, so now my kind of like CRT and retail server extension is done. So now I want to set up my local development environment, right? Let me do a quick change here. So just like before the demo, I was trying some changes here. So now my sample code all is there. Okay, I didn't like set up anything in this environment. Hey, how will I set up my environment, right? So one first thing, once you download or clone this repo, so I clone this repo locally. Okay, the only thing you have to do is like inside there is a download folder. Inside the download folder, copy our scale unit installer. Okay, you can get the scale unit installer from the lifecycle service. So this is like documented in the GitHub repo. If I go back here, so and then here if you see like we are published like here from where you can get the download installer and copy it, so you can get the installer and then put it in the download folder. Now when I press, just I have to press F5. So what it does is like it's going to automatically do all those setup. It will check everything is installed or not. It will install all those and then do the full setup for you. Okay, in the meantime I just want to show one more thing here. Okay, so there is a configuration here called like self-host. It means like it will, even you don't need IaaS, it will run everything locally for you, like a thing like the entire retail server or the headless commerce engine will run as a exe. If you want a full version to do connect to the AOS and then do the data sync, then you will just like remove this parameter, use self-host equal to false. Okay, then it will do the full deployment for you, including the, so that you can do like a data sync between your HQ, the master database to the channel database, and then you can do real-time call. Okay, so now my deployment is done and even it's deployed my extension. So let's quickly check our extension method is running or not. So let me go back to my unbound controller. Say for example, this is the simple method we wrote. So now let's see whether we are able to debug and call this method here. So we'll just call that method. So for example, if you see it now hit my breakpoint for my API, this API is just going to return true. But as I showed you in the other code, you can internally call those samples. So I'll hit continue. Okay. Now if you see, I would have got the response as true. That's what my code is returning. Okay. So now so we saw the quick demo of how to create the control new API and then the CRT extension and then the local development environment setup. As I said, like just the F5. The third part in our demo was like how to do the extension installer, right? So I will quickly go over it. So for example, now I have my CRT extension. Okay. Now I want to generate my cloud scale unit installer. Okay, so that I can install it when I do a self-hosted, right? So for that, we created like a sample project. Okay, let me go this one. So you will see the scale unit project. Okay, it's nothing. It's not like a specific project you have to create or not. It's just like a sample project I created. Okay. Inside that project, the only thing, as I said, like you need to consume this package, the scale unit. This is mainly to generate the scale unit project. Okay, and then tell for which projects, hey, I need to generate the installer. So in this case, I created my business logic and API project and my database script. Okay, this is the only thing you will do, and then you will consume this package. So you can create like even other different project and then just consume this packages. And then once I build this one, it will automatically gonna generate the installer for me. Since we did the F5, it will automatically build. Now, for example, if I go to the output folder here for that particular scale unit, so this is the scale unit project, bin, debug, net standard. So if you see, it has already created my cloud packages. Okay, suppose if I want to see the installer package also, so let's see where so there is an installer folder I created here, right? So that, for example, if I take this is the for deploying to the cloud, same for the installer. So we have this another project where you'll consume this package installer.scale unit. So we already built F5, right? So now if I go to the installer, okay, so let's take a step back here. So if I go to this installer sample project and then bin debug net461, so you should be able to see the output extension installer generated. So now through command prompt, I can call the exe, and then if I pass install, it's gonna install it for me. Okay? That's how you will generate the installer for the local using this installer packages, and for the cloud, you will use it using this particular this is for the installer. We go here, so you can see for the scale. Just you need to consume the package and then tell for which project. Even all the config, everything is automated in the backend. You don't have to do any of the other steps here. Okay. That's a quick demo on how the new installer, the local development environment, and SDK thing. For like the one last thing I forgot to tell you, like hey, all these packages now comes from the public feed, okay, which is there in my NuGet config file. So if I go here, so for example, in the repo, even in the same source, you can scale unit. So you should be able to find the NuGet config where I have like all my, 1 second. So you can see this NuGet config, it's pointing to this public feed location. That's how it gets all the different DLL. Then in your NuGet manager, you can specify version, or like you can have like a generic version props, like a repo props file, and specify all different versions like how we defined. Yeah, that's a quick demo on the local environment setup, and then how to consume the new SDK and do a simple quick sample extension. Yeah. So with that, I will hand it over back to Luke.
Thanks, Monty. So I'm going to talk a little bit about point of sale extensions in the Commerce SDK. So with the point of sale extensions like the headless commerce engine extensions, we really strove to keep all of the best aspects of the extensibility framework intact. So that means kind of the vast majority of what applied previously in the retail SDK still applies in the Commerce SDK, at least specifically for kind of the runtime extension code. So I'll get started. In the interest of time, I'm going to skip over the slides kind of that are going back over as an overview of what is available in terms of POS extensions. I think this is all consistent with what was previously there in the retail SDK, and it is not specific to the new developer experience in the Commerce SDK. So let me just jump forward to what's changed. So with all that said, there were a couple of changes in the Commerce SDK that we needed to make as a part of the independent packaging process and making sure that we were fundamentally sound going forward. So the first one of those changes that we made were to remove Knockout.js from all of our APIs, and as a part of that was the deprecation of the POS UI SDK control library, which in the new Commerce SDK has been replaced with a set of APIs under POS API consume and controls. So on the left here, we can see this code from our store hour sample using the POS UI SDK, the old approach, and how it would go ahead and create a data list. And then on the right here, we can see the code in the Commerce SDK. So you can see the vast majority of the code looks very similar, with just a couple of changes in terms of the creation of the control itself using the control factory create method. And all of this is further documented in our docs on docs.microsoft.com. There's an article there dedicated to talking about how to use the control factory to consume common POS controls. So the next change we made was to simplify the creation of custom views and the introduction of a new base class, which was custom view controller base, as a replacement for what was extension view controller base. And so creating this new base class gave us a more maintainable API for extensions going forward, and kind of enabled us to handle some of the common aspects like the POS header bar and the spinner automatically without the view itself needing to add those controls. So those aspects are all now managed through the configuration. So on the right here, you can just see the basic change. We're no longer extending extension view controller base, and now we're extending custom view controller base. The next and kind of a one-time change was moving away from extensions JSON to configure which extension packages will be loaded. So this extensions JSON approach required a merge if there were different extension packages, which was incompatible with kind of the independent packaging mantra. So what we've done is we've introduced a new API in the headless commerce engine called Git extension package definitions. I think Mani briefly showed the code for a trigger for this API that was configuring an extension package earlier, but we also have that on the right here. And you can see this trigger is just defining a POS extension package that should be loaded. The key aspects being the name and the publisher, and then whether or not it's enabled or not. And the biggest thing here is that the name listed here needs to match the package name field specified in the Commerce SDK so that POS can find the right package to load. And then the last and the biggest change with the Commerce SDK is kind of the packaging model as well as the developer experience. So in the left diagram here, we kind of see what we had with the legacy retail SDK, where all of the Microsoft as well as extension code was packaged into the same AppX package. And so that caused issues if we wanted to update any of the Microsoft code or any of the extensions code. It all had to be updated all at once. With the Commerce SDK, we can see we have kind of the Microsoft package up here, and then separately we have packages for each ISV or each extension package. And all of these boxes can be updated independently of one another. So this packaging model is facilitated by 3 different project types in the Commerce SDK. So I'll just quickly run through those. The first being the POS extension package project. This is the project where all of the code for POS extensions lives, including the manifest JSON. This is the project that will compile all of that TypeScript and kind of generate the web artifacts as output, which will then be included either into the modern POS modification package or scale unit deployable package for Cloud POS. The next project type is our modern POS modification package project. And so this is our JS project that's producing the UWP app package for MPOS in the sealed MPOS approach. And so this package will include all of the web content from the previous POS extension package project, as well as optionally any headless commerce engine extension assemblies or dedicated hardware station extension assemblies. And then the last project involved in modern POS development is the app package installer project. And this is the project type that generates the executable to install modern POS, and that's the sealed installers that Magunthan ran through a little bit earlier. Okay, so with that, I'll quickly jump into the code. So what I'm going to show you is kind of how this works with the new Commerce SDK and how to run and debug samples. So what you can see here is I've already just installed MPOS using the new sealed installer through the command line, and then I've just activated the device. So if we go here, we can see that there's no extension packages configured. So what we'll do now is we'll go ahead and we'll clone the SDK samples. So go ahead and do that. Let me just pull it up. So a simple git clone command of the in-store repo here. And then we'll go ahead and go in there. And we'll look at the POS sample. And open that up in Visual Studio 2017. Okay, so now we have the POS sample opened up here. The first thing we'll want to do is go ahead and restore the NuGet packages once Visual Studio loads up here. And so that makes sure that all of the dependencies are properly loaded for the solution. So then the next thing to do is to go ahead and build the solution. And while that's building, I'll show again the define POS extension package trigger that we have in the sample, which is adding our Contoso Commerce sample extension package to be returned from that Git extension package definitions API, simply by just adding it to the list here. So now that that's almost done building, we'll go ahead and grab this assembly and make sure that we get our retail server configured. And so what we'll do here is we'll go to the retail server bin folder and drop this assembly and get the configuration file updated as well. So I'll go ahead and drop these. Go ahead and open config file. And you can see here, I've already kind of pre-added this. Go ahead and uncomment that line. That'll get our CRT extension enabled, and we'll restart the retail server website. So now with that done, if we go ahead and relaunch POS, take a little bit because it's a cold start on retail server here. But what we're going to see is on the settings page, there will be an error because we've configured the extension package, but we have not actually installed it yet. So I just wanted to showcase this is, I think, one of the common things that scenarios that can happen if a step is missed. So we can see unable to load the extension package, but it is configured now that we've added our CRT extension trigger here. So with that done, we'll go ahead and we'll close POS again. And we can go ahead and right click on the modern POS project here, and we will go deploy. And so what this will do is install the modern POS UWP package on the machine. And so the next thing I'll do in the interest of time is I'll go ahead and show how to debug POS extensions for modern POS. So I'll set a breakpoint here in our application start trigger. And what we'll do is we'll go to the debug menu, and then it's buried here under other debug targets. But what we want is debug installed app package. And we'll go ahead and search for POS. And then we can hit start. And so this will launch POS and attach the debugger. One thing to note is just with the extensions now being a modification package, the normal F5 experience isn't supported by Visual Studio. So we kind of have to go this alternative route to launch and debug MPOS extensions. But all that being said, we can see the debugger is attached and we hit our breakpoint inside of our application start trigger. So I'll let this run. And now if we go to the settings page, we can see that our sample was loaded successfully. So with that, I think I will end the demo and we can jump back to some of the key takeaways from the session. So the first takeaway being that the Commerce SDK is a kind of modernized version of what was there in the retail SDK from a developer experience and packaging perspective. But we've maintained a lot of the existing functionality and extension model for the runtime extension. So from a code change perspective, there should be minimal change required to migrate to the Commerce SDK. It's more about a streamlined packaging and installation process. Next, kind of the benefits of independent packaging are the streamlined upgrade experience without having a code merge required, as well as better support for the ISV model where we can have separate extension packages providing content and additional functionality to point of sale and headless commerce engine without them needing to be merged, as well as kind of keeping the life cycle of those packages separate. The next one, the big one here, is that by October 2022, everything needs to be migrated to the Commerce SDK. As with the October 2022 release, we'll be dropping support for the legacy retail SDK. With that said, we're here to help, and we want all of the migration processes to be a success. We have a number of upcoming tech talks that we think will cover topics that will be helpful with that. But I think, as we've already seen in the chat today, there's a number of other topics that are top of mind. So if there are more that you haven't suggested yet and you'd like to see covered, please let us know, and we'd be happy to cover those that everybody thinks is helpful. I think with that, we can jump over to a couple questions briefly.
Okay, so maybe Luke, I will read out those questions to you. Is that fine?
Yep, that's good.
Okay. So the one question we have, like, do we need to spin up new development environment in order to take independent packaging framework? Assume I already have a dev environment. What things we need to consider there?
Mani, do you want to take this one, or I can answer it?
No, I can answer this one. Okay. So if you already have a LCS dev environment, you can still use the same environment and do the development. Just you need to, like, even the demo I showed, I use the existing LCS development environment. So I just like cloned that repo and then consume the package, and you can do independent packaging development. So you don't have to like deploy a new machine or like do everything on your local. Okay. So you can still continue to use the same. It's just like you're going to run the FI experience from that machine. Okay. So even though it has like already retail server and everything deployed, it will have like another instance of it. So you can do a local development. So you don't have to like deploy a new machine. Okay. So let me go to the next question. Could you explain how to work with multiple extensions like partners and customer and merged in one package? Yeah. Okay. Maybe look, I can take this question also. Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. So there's different options. Like one, say for example, all the channel installer components, like for the modern point of sale or the cloud scaling self-hosted. Now, previously everything has to be merged. Now with the new model, you can get different installers from the ISVs, okay, or like from your customer partner extension, and then you can independently run and manage them. So even upgrade can be done independently, so you don't have to do any merge. The only currently one thing where you have to merge the packages is for the cloud deployment, where we don't support yet for the independent ISV packages deployment, but in the future we're going to support that. So for now, you have to do a package level merge, or even say for example, if the ISV has given the code, you can put everything in the DevOps pipeline and then generate one package. But for all the channel components where you're going to do install, that can be independently done. So you need to get different installer. So I can even have like 10 different extension add-ins, and then I can install it. Yeah, only for the cloud, it's not available yet, but soon we're going to add that for the cloud packages also. Okay.
Thanks.
Next.
I think we're at time, McGinton. So I think there's a bunch of other unanswered questions in the chat here, and we'll make sure we respond to all of those today. So keep an eye out for that. But with that, Jocelyn, I'll toss it back over to you.
Thanks, Luke. Ladies and gentlemen, I've posted a link to a short survey in the Q&A panel. We'd like your feedback on today's session and hear what you'd like to see in future events. Thank you for your participation. As a reminder, the recording of today's session will be available on the TechTalk's Community Dynamics page within 5 business days. I'd like to extend a big thank you to our presenters and the audience for joining us today. Thank you and have a great rest of your week.